Welcome to UND Insider Weekly alongside Tom Miller, Brad Schlossman from the Grand Forks Herald, and Paul Ralston from UND Athletics. I'm Tim Hennessy. Well, volleyball has got quite the run going, gentlemen, as they defeated Sacramento State last week and then moved on on Monday night in a big 5-set win over Northern Colorado to stay unbeaten in the Big Sky at 6-0, 4-0, maybe more importantly, Tom, 4-0 on the road.
Yeah, especially that Northern Colorado Monday night on a long road trip after you went to Sac State. That's not the easiest road swing. So to pull that one out in 5 and remain unbeaten, I'm sure Coach Ashley Hardy's pretty happy about that.
Well, how that happened, they were down 2 games in the match and down 12-9, I think, in the third game, and it looked like she was about lights out for them. Somehow came back. That's significant in itself, don't you think?
Well, it was that offense. They started hitting it really well. I think their percentages through games 1 and 2 were not very good on their swings, and they just started attacking with a little bit more consistency and started getting the court, getting some more points, and just finishing plays a little bit better. And once they started doing that, they got the momentum going and collected a big one, because Northern Colorado's record will be, it's not looking very good, but they're still a very quality program. In fact, they were the representative out of the Big Sky last year, and are regarded as a very strong program. I think they'll turn it around. So getting that win on the road against Northern Colorado last night, huge.
Almost as important as the offense has to be mentally to be on the road and not only did they lose those first 2 games, they got beat pretty handily in those first 2 games. And against a program like Northern Colorado, to be able to come back from that and win the next 3 in a row, it shows you got to be pretty mentally strong.
And also, one thing that we didn't mention is that North Dakota really struggled mightily in 5-game matches a year ago. In fact, it was not something that they had very much success at all. And to do that on the road in that situation at the tail end of a long road trip has got to just make Ashley Hardy just thrilled.
Well, you throw out the records and non-conference records of these teams anyway, because they play, most of them, if they're going to be competitive, play a great schedule anyway, don't they?
Absolutely. All these squads really challenge themselves. I think that's why you see like the top half of the Big Sky really have some great quality volleyball. And I think that, we were talking earlier last month that North Dakota volleyball, maybe they challenge themselves too much. And I think in the end, I think Coach Hardy's been proven right with the schedule that he's put in front of his team.
Women's hockey, let's talk that for a while. They opened their regular season last weekend against Lindenwood, win 5-1 and 6-1, and I don't really think they were that close, were they, Brad?
Not really. I don't think they were ever in doubt. And it was our first chance to see some of the young players in regular game action, and not against high school kids like the first weekend. So you have to be impressed with Susanna Tapany, 6 points her first week into college hockey. I know Michelle Carvinen said for her it was a little difficult to adjust to the American style of play, and she thinks that Tapany is adjusting really well to that, and obviously the point to say so.
Tom, that's a team that is expected to get off to a fast start. They've got Minnesota Duluth this weekend, and the problem has been, I think, in the past couple of years, they've dropped some of these games early on that has really cost them in the end.
Right, you look back towards the end of the year and you start wishing you had this game back or that game back. So to start strong for this team that's already trying to figure out kind of a new identity, that'll be big to already establish that early on, which it appears they've done a little bit of that already.
One of the identity things that Tom touched on, and Brad, I know, has written about a little bit, is the amount of shots that UND women's hockey has generated from the point.
Yeah.
Basically, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to pick up loose pucks in front of the net now, moving forward, and I think it was an unbelievable number of point shots here through this past weekend, correct?
Yeah, I think it was the defensemen had 52 shots on goal over the weekend, and they have a couple of freshmen D who really like to get involved in the offense, and Hallie Kajaniak and Grayson Hershey. Both of those two will be, if you count Monique Lamoureux as a forward, I think that those two will probably be the 2 best offensive defensemen UND's ever had by the time they're done.
How big a challenge this weekend, Minnesota Duluth?
It's tough to know exactly what they have, but Duluth is a team that should be in the top half of the league this year. I think that they have a lot of their players back this year, so we'll find out a lot about UND this weekend.
Let's talk some football, and UND gets on the winning side of the ledger in the Big Sky. They're 1-1 in the Big Sky, despite what has happened around here. But I think maybe more importantly, they got Greg Harden going last weekend, and Idaho State didn't want to kick to him. They did. Tom, big mistake there, huh?
Yeah, you could tell your kicker all week not to kick to him, but apparently you can't. you can't follow through on that game plan. So Greg Harden was involved. They got him involved, like you said, in a number of different ways. I think he had about 8 catches, 120 some yards. Got him over the middle. You know, they got Kenny Galladay involved too in a number of different ways. So they're going to need that offense though to pick it up a little bit. Defensively, they got a touchdown and they got a kick return for a touchdown. So half your points are coming from outside your offense. So they're going to need that offense big time against Eastern Washington this week.
You mentioned Kenny Galladay making probably the biggest play of the game on that catch there for a big third down conversion late in the game. And you know, I was there and witnessed it, Tim, and one of the things you just look at that second half, the defense was on the field for, I think, almost 23 minutes of 30 minutes of football in the second half. They were a gassed bunch. A couple of them admitted after the game, but they said they didn't let on during the course of play, and they just kept playing through it and made a huge, big defensive play for a score late that really kind of gave them the momentum to kind of push over the top and get a road win, which I think is just crucial for this team moving forward, getting some confidence.
Any surprise leaving Joe Mulberg in as the starting quarterback? You know, frankly, he's had an average performance at best, I would guess, but I think he's going to be the guy.
Right. No, I think well, coming into that week, they said they were going to give somebody the full go of it, and I think Joe's proven that maybe he moves a little better in the pocket and avoids some of the pass rush, keeps plays alive. He's got to stay away from making that key poor decision on drives, especially on 1st and 10. I think, you know, a couple of his bad throws came early in the sequence like that, and sometimes he's just got to learn to eat it or throw it away.
All right, let's talk a little hockey, men's hockey. They had their exhibition game. They got on the ice against Manitoba on Sunday night, and per usual, they beat them. But it was a 3-0 count in that one. First, just your take on it, Brad. How'd you think the squad looked?
Well, I went back and looked through some old results against Manitoba, and 3 goals is the fewest they've scored against them recently, but they've never shut them out either. So maybe a more defensive game than we're used to against the Bisons. I think some of the young players look pretty good. Luke Johnson, obviously the one guy that really stood out to me. He's one of the younger guys. He was a true freshman this year, but he's obviously ready for the college game. What
impressed me was that nobody looked like a fish out of water. And, and frankly, there's been times when some of the young guys have come in here and they look like, wow, he's not quite ready yet. I don't think you could say that about any of them, could you?
No, I can't think of anyone, and they're going to need that too, because they're not going to have 2 Hobie Baker finalists set forward like they did last year. I think we can.
That's a brash prediction by you, Brad.
I think we can all agree that, but so they're going to need more scoring from their depth and more contributions from around the lineup, and when all the freshmen are looking pretty solid, that's a good sign.
I don't think that he came with as much fanfare, although he was the BC Junior Defenseman of the Year, Troy Stetcher. I think he reminds me, and some people out there watching may remember Curtis Murphy, but looked an awful lot like him, not just physically, but I think just in the way he plays. He was not afraid to play the game, which is important for young defensemen too, don't you think?
Yeah, I think we heard a little bit about the offense that he brings, and we see a little bit of the edge he plays with. I heard one player say sort of like a Joe Gleason in that sense, where he's smaller but not afraid to mix it up and get his nose in there.
Was it a good start then, do you think?
I think so. No one got hurt. The team came out with a win. A lot of the young guys, they had every freshman in the lineup outside of Matt Harinkyu, I believe. So a lot of the young guys got game action. So that's always a big positive.